Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I'm at home with my family, and this is the hoarder house, so sorry about the mess. Um, I been thinking about New Year's resolutions and that kind of stuff. The future is pretty hazy. Um, I think um, it can be draining for an introvert to be around people a long time, and I want to have some time alone. Um, I wanted to talk about that I talked about MBTI to my ISFJ best friend. We talked about it for about an hour, which is a lot for talking to him. Um, I gave him a rundown of the cognitive functions because he's met my INFJ friend, and um, he said that he'd never met anybody that was as disconnected from reality. But he also said that he'd never met anybody this deep. So I think that overall he is pretty impressed. But he knows that he's very different. He said, well, it's interesting because he uh, is similar to the INFJ in many ways. But at the same time, they're complete opposites because he's practical. And so I explained to him that, well, the cognitive functions stack is pretty similar, but there are differences. And how it seems like we are swimming in our first function all the time, so we think that everybody else experiences life this way, but it's not true. So for me, so I explained introverted feeling, and he said, oh, my sister is like that. I think his sister is an ISFP, or an ESFP, and he was just really impressed and amazed by the MBTI. It was a little bit hard for me to explain because I'm not great at explaining things. Because he'd already taken the 16 personality test and gotten the code, the MBTI code. But explaining the cognitive functions, he was really interested in this kind of stuff because he said that it could be practical for using with other people, which is a really ISFJ thing to think, you know. He was thinking, like, how could I practically use this to improve my relations with other people? And I explained to him how my any helps his any, and he really related to any being his last function. It kind of embarrassed about that, about worrying about different things, about seeing all the ways things can go wrong. But he was also really proud that about SI, he was really proud that he's a practical person, that he's in tune with his body. He said that, yeah, like if something, like he's adjusting the thermostat or something, like if his ear starts hurting a little bit, it destroys his day, you know. He really is in tune with how his body is, and he's really into his routine. It kind of is one of his insecurities that he's too boring or that kind of thing. I told him, well, no, it doesn't have to be that way. I explained to him how it was useful to me, and I was also explaining how, well, being intuitive is not always the best because it makes us out of touch with the world. And he is very proud of being able to ground me and other intuitive types. So I told him that, like, he was really interested in FE and TI because his mom is an ESFJ, I think. So he said, yeah, she's like the extroverted version of me. And it was just interesting to talk about the functions with somebody who had never heard about it before. And he was really catching on pretty quickly at, like, yeah, he could recognize this and this person, and that kind of thing. And like the fact that we all have things to work on, things to develop, things that we are better at, how we can relate to different people by having the same functions, but also by having the same things that we prefer. Because he was really interested in how the INFJ works, because my ISFJ and INFJ friend have met now a few times. They are very different, but they can also really relate on the FE level. Like, my ISFJ friend now said that he can really feel, like, one of the nurses at work, if she's very stressed out, he feels stressed out. And I was saying, well, see, it doesn't really go instantaneously over to me. It's more like when somebody is stressed out at work, sometimes it goes over on me, but sometimes it's more like I'm thinking about how that person is in that situation. Like, oh, this nurse has worked 60 hours this week, you know. If I were in that situation, I'd also be very stressed, and I can go through my library of feelings and stuff and feel empathy for this person and feel stressed through that roundabout way. He was also fascinated by the idea that an INFP, I was saying, like, because he said he has real issues with identity, which is something my INFJ friend has also talked about. And he was like, so you know who you are? And I was like, I become less and less certain of who I am with time, but I think that I have a very nuanced idea of what I am. So I think that when I was young, I knew who I was, and I started realizing all the possibilities, you know, I started realizing that is not, I could be many different people. I could be a lot of things, and I am a lot of things, and I'm not a lot of things, and something I'm thinking about all the time. And that was a big revelation for my ISFJ friend. He was like, wow, it would be so cool to know who I was. Because he's a bit worried about how we were talking about how we'd grown with my INFJ friend too. And my ISFJ friend asked me, how did I think that he'd grown, or if he'd changed throughout the 10 years of knowing him, 9 years. I basically said that he was the same, which kind of disappointed him. But then he wanted to know if he treated everybody the same. And I said, well, you do, but at the same time, you don't. And I want to feel a little bit special. So I don't want to be treated the same way as you treat every acquaintance. And that really mystified him, because he really wants to hear that he treats everybody nicely and everybody feels happy. And I think that the FI way of thinking of it is we value people in different ways. So, of course, you're going to treat people differently. And you're going to be different people with different people, because um, your relations to them are different. And so you can't be a single identity of a person. You're still the same person, but you have different aspects of yourself that you show different people. And I think that FE users see that, but in a different way. I think that for FI users, what is mystifying is how FE users that them expressing themselves is them not actually really being themselves, or it's not the usual for them. Well, for INFPs, it's more that we can't really express ourselves. That it feels like a prison. Well, I think FE users, it's just that they don't have a self to express, you know? Or that's how they feel, at least. Or it's like it's not important enough to destroy the group dynamics by expressing themselves in their minds. Which is kind of sad, but well, that's just the way that they work, you know? So the way that my ISFJ friend could really understand FE and SI and NE, he could understand all the functions, really. It was just interesting for him. And we actually talked about it quite a long time. I stayed at his house. It was Christmas Eve. And it was a great conversation. Because we don't talk about abstract stuff in general. We usually just talk about like what we're going to make for dinner and that kind of simple stuff. But that is very comforting stuff. Sometimes, this is something that I learned from my ISFJ friend, is that sometimes you can't talk about everything with every person. That certain people fulfill different roles in your life. Sometimes you can't communicate your way through things. Sometimes it's just to let things go. To maintain harmony, basically. So yeah, I just wanted to say that this conversation with my ISFJ friend was really powerful and give me a new perspective on how the MBTI is actually useful. And it gave me a new sense of intimacy with my ISFJ friend. So that's all I had to say on the topic. I don't know why I made this video, but it's getting long. So have a great day.